GT Divide Podcast going to another episode, and we're rocking. I realized the other day, man, I kind of went through uh, men's mental health month, awareness month in June, and I didn't really get to tell my story. Um, I know it's like late July. Y'all probably laugh. Oh, you never got to tell a story. Yeah, I did. Um, about kind of my journey as I'm preparing to speak to some kids at a church that I work at about mental health, and so I figured I can get on here and kind of get a little practice run. Forgive me if I tear up or if I get disheveled a little bit. This is very near and dear to my heart, but I'm gonna speak about mental health. I'm gonna talk about Elijah and then his battle with mental health, and I'll also probably bring up Peter a little bit in his battle with faith, because I think the two are intertwined, right? There's some faith issues that go into some of the depression and anxiety that people feel. So I'll start off by saying, if any of you guys ever dealt with depression or anxiety, I've dealt with both. More so on the anxiety side. I'm more of a future forward thinker, so I'm always thinking ahead, planning ahead, analyzing ahead, and it's crazy because it causes worry. And so as you push and you keep thinking ahead, you start to worry more because you're starting to think into stuff that you have zero control over. You might not even be here when that actually happens, but that's just how my brain works, right? And so a little bit about my past and kind of how I got into some of my mental health issues. Obviously, childhood was rough for me, wasn't easy. Um, kind of some things that I have not healed, I still haven't healed from. Going to counseling, still haven't really healed 100% from some things. But I will tell you this: God has definitely been good. There's some times that I could have broke, but I didn't. There's some times that people could have broken me, but they didn't. God was always there, lending His hand, reaching down for me. Um, and I think that had I not been taught some of the values that my mom gave me when I was younger, it would have prohibited me from being able to get where I am today. Obviously, in the line of work that I do as a police officer, you get a lot of stress. You get a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. You're constantly adrenaline dumping and relaxing and jumping and relaxing and dumping and relaxing. So you're constantly back and forth. Um, so I'm gonna tell you a little about. So obviously, there's triggers. One of my biggest triggers, I think, that really sent me down this road was when my daughter was born early. Um, my wife had some medical issues going on with the pregnancy, and so my daughter comes out early. It was the most stressful time of my entire life because I think at that point in time I realized no matter how much planning I did ahead, I have no control, zero control. And so at that time, it's worthy to say that I didn't have a whole lot of faith either. Um, when I talk about Peter, I talk about when he walked on water. Um, it's crazy because so Jesus comes out on the waters and he's walking on water and they see a shadow, so they think he's a ghost. They're afraid on this boat, and so the waters are turbulent, there's waves and everything's crashing in, windy out there. It's kind of like a hurricane, essentially, is how I describe it in my head. And so Peter said, he cries out, they cry out, and the Lord Jesus says, it's me, right? Peter still having that such little faith, he said, if it is you, ask me to come to you. So then Peter gets out of the boat. He said, so Jesus, okay, come on out here. Peter gets out of the boat. He starts walking on water. But even then, in that moment, when Jesus is up on him, you can see the presence of the Lord right there. He's walking on water. He's got you walking on water, right? You would think that that would make you have the utmost faith. But Peter still didn't have that faith. So it's windy. He starts to sink. His faith wasn't there. Jesus, help me. So Jesus reaches down and pulls him up out of the water. And he says, why do you have little faith? Like, why do you not have faith? And then it makes people realize it's human nature. Faith is not a natural thing. Faith is is one of the most unnatural things that you can ever have to deal with in your lifetime. And it's something that is learned. It's an aspect that is learned, right? And so back to me, Mr. Little Faith. Daughter's born early. I don't get to see her born. Um, At that point in time, that was kid number two, so we ended up moving back to Kansas. Moved to Kansas City. Probably the roughest patch of like 2 to 3 years of my entire life. Um, Changed jobs. So not only do I have the health scare, premature baby, having to go to the hospital to see her for months, um, being that far away from family. I mean, we're literally states away. I mean, you can't just get there quickly. Like you gotta. We're states away. Let's be honest. Like flights, you gotta fly to come out there to see us, right? So families flying out there to see us. Um, Job change, move. So we moved back. Um, I ended up leaving the current company that I worked for so long, and I kind of had to remold myself and try to figure some different things out. Moving into another company. At that time, I was there was a calling, right, for me to do something bigger than what I was doing. Then I was in restaurants, and I'm not saying being in restaurants and being a general manager is not big, but something different. I had something different to offer to the world than what I was currently doing at the time, and so that took me to a place where the doubt started creeping in and the faith started to leave, right? Because up until I had a lot of faith, like even with the incident happening and moving and all that jazz, I still had a lot of faith. So my struggle was not knowing the future, not trusting in God and what He had planned for my future. That was the issue. And so we're 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 struggling. I mean, we got a little 2 bedroom, little spot. It's expensive as heck to live in Lenexa. I will tell you guys that from experience. Lenexa, Kansas, Overland Park, Olathe, it's expensive as heck to live there. Um, but I got a job where I was working super early in the morning. I mean, I was getting up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, be at work at 6. The level of exhausted that I was is unfathomable. I was so exhausted every day, like I couldn't even come home and do normal everyday things that you do with your kids. I was so tired, worn out, feet hurting, back hurting, just no energy. It was at that point that I realized that the life that I wanted for my family, far exceeded my abilities at the time. And so my level of gratitude was low. Was I thankful? Yes, I was thankful, but was I thankful enough? No. And so my level of gratitude was low. So I started struggling. I went through a period in time where I was young. I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. I won't say mid 20s because Maya was born then. So like mid 20s. I mean like 26, 27, somewhere in there. Um, but it was so bad that I ended up in a room getting a procedure done. They did a heart cath on me. Can't remember, was it this wrist? They cut and then they slid the thing in the vein. I could feel it going through the veins and put some dye in my heart just to see, make sure my blood vessels were open, right? I remember sitting in the room and the doctor was like, or the nurse came in, she was like calling me a baby. Because, I mean, this is a place where you got 50 and 60-year-old men in here. And here I am in my damn 20s. I'm sitting in this room getting this procedure that people that are twice my age get because of the level of anxiety I was dealing with. I mean, I was having heart palpitations, chest pain, sweaty palms, sweating, sometimes trouble breathing. I remember I went to the doctor one time, my primary care, because I was like, man, just check and make sure everything's good. And I remember the look on the lady's face because so they did an EKG. They put the little monitors on me, and I'm sitting there, and she's like, "Hey, you need to go to the hospital." And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, what in the heck is going on? She's like, "You need to go to the hospital right now." So I called my wife, and I was like, "Hey, they said I need to go to the hospital." And she told me you might be having a heart attack, and I'm like, "What?" She said that they needed to send me to the hospital so they can get a better reading on the EKG and maybe do a stress echo to make sure that my heart was pumping right. Because she was under the impression that at that point in time I was having a heart attack. And at that point in time, I realized that this is real. Whatever is going on with my body, my mind, my soul, my spirit is 100% real. And I need to do something about it. So, wife comes, picks me up from there, takes me to the hospital because they didn't want me to drive. Like, I drove myself to see my primary care doctor. They didn't want me to drive, so Kelly had to come get me and take me to the hospital. So I go to the hospital and I'm up there and I'm just like, I'm shook because I'm like, dude, like, am I dying? Like, I didn't feel like I was dying, but I know how fast these things happen. And so thoughts are running through my head. I'm just like, dude, like something's up. Like something's wrong with me. I don't know what the heck is going on. I have like zero clue. But I trust the doctors, right? I trust them. They're going to be able to get me right or get me wherever I need to be. So, okay, cool. So we get there. They do all their tests. I'm fine. 100% fine. I go home, stressed out, tired, worn out, longest day of my entire life. Um, Still with questions. Why is my body doing the things that it is doing? At this point in time, yes, we're going to church. We were going to church, but we weren't in the spirit. I wouldn't say that we were in the spirit. We're just showing up to church just to say it's a check off the list. Hey, we're gonna check this off the list. We're going to church. All right, cool. Whatever. Move on to the next. And so during that time, I never really felt connected to Jesus. So for me to get faith, for him to be able to instill the grace, the love in me to give me the opportunity to have faith, because that's where faith comes from. Faith comes from, right? The relationship. As the relationship builds, you get more faith in it. I wasn't building that relationship with him. And so I was out here with no faith, body breaking down. I didn't know what was wrong. I mean, I wore a heart monitor for a while. Remember, it was in my pocket and it would like monitor my activity. I remember doing a stress echo, having to run on the treadmill and then hop on the bed and then let them press on your chest with the imaging. And so all this stuff was nuts to me. This is all crazy because I'm thinking in my head, I'm too young for this. Like, what is going on that I'm at this point in time, this period in life where it's crazy because I don't know what the problem is. The doctors don't know what the problem is. My heart doctor, I had a heart doctor, and I'm in my mid 20s, had a heart doctor. That's crazy. As I look back on it, I'm like, man, that is nuts. I had a heart doctor in my mid, and I don't have any kind of um, heart problems from my youth. Like I wasn't born with any kind of heart problems. Like I was born normal. I mean, I had the roar and it was a little hole and it sealed up or whatever. That was about it though. My brothers had it too, so I didn't have any kind of problem. So I'm like, why is my body doing this to me? Like, what am I doing wrong that is causing my body to do this to me? Is it eating wrong? Is it sleep? Like, is it stress? Like, what is it? And to this point in time, I didn't really know exactly what was going on. But over the next little bit of time, I started to figure it out, right? And so as I started to figure it out, what I started to see was stress was causing problems. Stress was causing problems. And so as I figured out the stress was causing problems, I had to figure out what the stress was. And then what could I do to alleviate the stress? What can I do to be able to put these things away and be able to alleviate the stress that I was going through so that way my body could rest? Because my body never got the opportunity to rest. And so that's kind of where that's where my journey took me. And so as I go through the episode 2 of this, I'm gonna talk to you guys about that journey. I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, a backstory before we go into it. Please stick around for the rest of the episodes as we continue to rock this GT the Vibe podcast. I'm out.